You could call it the ultimate send-off. No timelines, no backup plan, just a mission and a promise. Well, today we're looking at Acts chapter 1, verses 6 through 11, the second in a series here through the book of Acts. So when they had come together, they began asking him, saying, Lord, is it at this time you are restoring the kingdom to Israel? But he said to them, it is not for you to know the times or seasons that the Father has set by his own authority, but you will receive power when the Holy Spirit has come upon you, and you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem and in all Judea and Samaria and to the farthest part of the earth. And after he had said these things, while they were watching, he was taken up, and a cloud received him from their sight. And as they were staring into the sky while he was departing, behold, 2 men in white clothing stood by them, who also said, Men of Galilee, why do you stand there looking into the sky? This Jesus who was taken up from you into heaven like this will come back in the same way you saw him departing into heaven. Well, when my kids were younger, we were doing a long road trip. You'd often hear the chorus of, Are we there yet? Probably you know exactly that refrain. Oh, we see something similar going on here in verse 6. The disciples say to Jesus, Lord, is it at this time you are restoring the kingdom to Israel? Lord, are you now finally going to set up your kingdom here on earth? We didn't get the suffering Messiah thing before, but now that you've been crucified and buried and risen from the dead, is it finally time to set up your kingdom here on earth? I think it's a reasonable question. I probably would have been asking the same thing, or at least thinking it, hoping somebody else asked it if I didn't, but I think it was a fair question, right? But he said to them, Jesus said to them, it is not for you to know the times or seasons that the Father is set by his own authority. Kind of reminiscent of Matthew 24:36, but concerning that day and hour, no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, nor the Son, except the Father alone. While Jesus does not specifically answer the question, he acknowledges the question. He doesn't answer it. Essentially, what he's saying is, don't concern yourself with when these things will be fulfilled. Just know that they will be fulfilled when the time is right. Rather, verse 8, but you will receive power when the Holy Spirit has come upon you, and you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem and in all Judea and Samaria and to the farthest part of the earth. So Jesus began his reply to the disciples' question by telling that it was not for them to know the timing. He now pivots with a contrasting declaration. It's not for you to know the timing or the seasons, but, well, this but in English is from the Greek word Allah. It can be translated but or yet or rather. It's what's known as a logical contrastive conjunction. That's a big mouthful, but it's going to make sense here in a minute why I'm bringing it up. Earlier in verse 7, the English but is from the word day, and that Greek word day, and that can be translated but or and or now. So this isn't a problem of translation, but is a perfectly appropriate translation. But in one of those instances, it is instead one of those instances where a bit of a deep dive can serve to confirm or deny a reading of the text. And when I was looking at it, just looking at the text, I said, I think there's something here that I don't hear talked about a lot. And he tells them it's not for you to know the times or the seasons. Don't worry about that. But, or yet, or perhaps I like best of all, rather, this contrastive conjunction. You will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes upon you, and you will be my witnesses. It's not for you to know the times and the seasons. Rather, you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes upon you. You'll be my witnesses. Don't worry about the timing of future events. Rather, you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes upon you, and you will be my witnesses. Even today, 2,000 years later, it is easy to become more focused on questions like when Jesus will return than we are on completing the mission that we have been empowered and left here to complete. Jesus then goes on to say, where they were told that they would be Jesus' witnesses. And this, you have to wonder if this wasn't a little bit shocking to the disciples hearing this. Where were they told? Jerusalem. That's where they were at. That was their home city. Judea. That's basically the nation. That's the region. Samaria. That's the, border to the north where they didn't get along too well. They didn't appreciate the Samaritans kind of co-opting their religion. They they just didn't get along well. Remember the story of Jesus with a Samaritan woman at the well, and they were amazed that he was stopping there and talking to Samaritans. Well, Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and then to the farthest part of the earth. And this also foreshadows the geographical spread of the gospel message in the book of Acts. Chapters 1 through 7, the church spreads in Jerusalem. Chapter 8, the church spreads in Judea and Samaria. Chapters 9 through 28, we see the church spreading to the surrounding nations. Well, what's the application of this for 21st century Christians still awaiting Jesus' return? Or is it just interesting Christian history? I think there is an application, and that is simply this. We are to be Jesus' witnesses at home and in our nation and amongst nearby people groups and to the farthest part of the earth. So we're to take the gospel to everyone, starting with our own family, social, and people groups, but then expanding to the furthest parts of the earth. Then we find a shocking development here as they're standing around talking. Just when they think things can't get any heavier or weirder, right? Acts 1, 9 through 11. And after he had said these things while they were watching, he was taken up, and a cloud received him from their sight. And as they were staring into the sky while he was departing, behold, 2 men in white clothing stood by them, who also said, Men of Galilee, why do you stand there looking into the sky? This Jesus who was taken up from you into heaven like this will come back in the same way you saw him departing into heaven. Jesus was taken up into the sky, and a cloud received him from their sight. And then as they're staring into the sky, and who wouldn't, right? We'd all be doing the same thing, just still staring like, what just happened? What is going on? As they're staring into the sky, 2 men in white clothing stood by them. The description of these figures suggests that they are angels. Luke chapter 24 tells us, and it happened that while they were perplexed about this, behold, 2 men in gleaming clothing stood near them. Further implies by the clothing that they were angels. So the angels reaffirmed that Jesus will again return to earth in the same way that they had seen him depart into heaven. So take heart, have confidence. This Jesus who is taken up from you into heaven will return just as he said. Don't worry about the timing of that return. Rather, wait for the empowering of the Holy Spirit, and then focus on being his witnesses throughout the entire world, starting right where you are at home. Well, I hope that this study was edifying and encouraging. I'll leave you with this thought from Romans chapter 13. And do this because you know the time, that it is already the hour for you to wake up from sleep. For our salvation is nearer now than when we first believed.